Hello, everyone. A very good evening, morning, and afternoon to all of you who have joined us today. And it's a Saturday workshop again. Thank you for joining us. The topic for today's workshop is around handling difficult stakeholders. But why do we even need to know about it? So, even if you're a freelancer or you're working somewhere, there comes a project or a product where you have to deal with the requirements coming from stakeholders who are clearly not aware in their heads that what they want. And since design is an evolving industry, it makes it even more difficult for them to communicate with us or the communicate with the designers how it is, what is to be done, what they want. So how do you tackle such situations? It can be very stressful, very pressureful. So to help us with that, we have Rakshita today. Rakshita is a design manager with 4+ years of experience in working with Fortune 500 clients. Her strength lies in her ability to do deep research, drive solid stakeholder management, and help clients with accurate plans of action. When she's not working, you'll find her delivering guest lectures at universities like one today. So Rakshita, the stage is all yours. We are all set to hear about it.
Hi guys. So for people who actually joined in early, the good thing is all the important stuff is going to be discussed by the time the latecomers join. So you guys are definitely, at advantage here. Great. So, okay. Let me just go ahead with sharing my screen and stuff. Hello guys. I am actually excited to be here with this amazing audience, you guys. So today we're going to cover what do stakeholders even look like. This can be both for freelancer, for students, for interns, for people who are starting out in the industry in general. What are stakeholders? Who are these people? Next up, we'll be discussing the 3-step process to communicate better with these stakeholders. This is actually something which I have learned from my experience and made this 3-step process, which is very quick and easy to follow. So this is something you're definitely taking home with you today. And of course, conflict resolution. As we all know, conflict is one big aspect of dealing with stakeholders. And last, we'll be concluding at what is the difference between a good versus a great designer? What sets you apart from the crowd? So are you guys ready for the session? Okay, so on that note, let's get started. So I've shared what I'm going to cover today. As Rashika has already shared who I am, I just want to give a quick recap to all the people who joined in a little late. So I'm Rakshita Gupta. Hello, guys. So I'm basically a design manager by day and a community manager by night. So I'm managing a community by day and a team by night. I think I swapped it around. So just the other way around. I have been working with the industry for over 4 years now, and the most interesting and the most memorable part of my journey has been working with Fortune 500 clients, where of course I had to apply, how to work with stakeholders. So hence we're going to discuss about this topic. Apart from this, like Rashika mentioned, most of the time when I'm not working, I'm basically delivering sessions like this, or I'm delivering lectures at universities. So yeah, I love teaching. I actually love dealing with stakeholders and dealing with difficult stakeholders of all. I really find it intriguing. And hence I want to share my journey and my process with you guys. Great. So on that note, we get started. So who are stakeholders? Stakeholder is basically anybody who is directly or indirectly affected your product. And if you're a student, then your project, right? So if you're making a project on autism, so anybody who is being affected around it is your stakeholder. Anybody who is involved in the decision making, in the implementation is your stakeholder, right? Simply put, that is the definition. Yes, okay. And what do stakeholders look in a room together? What do you think the stakeholders together in the room look like? For me, it looks like this. No kidding. This is how I have been dealing with stakeholders, or in a room of stakeholders. This is what I see in most places. Yes, people banging their heads and just going all nuts. Seriously. So who according to your stakeholders is something that you guys have already shared with me. In that case, I'm just going to jump to the next slide. That is the different types of stakeholders. So like most of you correctly mentioned, they are customers, they are people from the product team. It can be a product manager, it can be a product designer, it can be anybody else on the product team. Similarly, the engineering team, which involves developers and other engineers, the marketing team, which might also involve people from the sales or not. It might involve people from the digital marketing team, like we have someone in here, and the business team, and of course, subject matter experts. So these are some mainstream stakeholders which are involved in most of the decision making of the product. And here is one of the biggest slide that I'm going to share with you. We often talk about users being our biggest stakeholders. We think we are doing user experience, we are doing user research, we are doing user interviews. Users should be the key of our products. And if users are not happy, our products are not going to survive. Well, true. But if the business is not there, if these internal stakeholders are not there, there will be no product, there will be no user for a good UX, right? So we keep forgetting about these internal stakeholders. And when the time comes to actually deliver that UX, we are here with either one of those stakeholders. We've all been there. Am I right? So then, in that case, I want you guys to actually think of that one stakeholder who makes you go like this. I'm sure there is one stakeholder in everybody's life who gets on your nerves and you go all crazy. Who is it for each one of you? See, for me, I can tell it's definitely the developers. I've had a hard time with them. I mean, no personal offense, but it's true. I've had massive fights with them over and over. Okay, Rahul says it's his manager, the person who is never satisfied with the design. I can relate to that. Developers, Zakhir, high five. Developers, PM, of course. Oh God, PMs, yes. How can I forget them? Guys, I mean, if you guys don't have that one stakeholder, then you have a very sorted life. Trust me, I don't think you even need this session. You should teach me how not to fall into that conflicts. Interviewers, yes. Oh, yes. PMs and developers, project owners. By the way, if you guys have already answered, you can answer for more people because there are more than one stakeholders who get us into this kind of a situation. Project owners. My recent client, he had an issue with the developer and I just got stuck between the conflict. I'm so sorry to hear that, Ibrar. After this presentation, I'm sure you can help both of them. Anybody else? Anybody else who isn't interacting? I'll have to see the names, okay? Anybody else? Okay, sure. So in most cases, we are like this, but sometimes they even make us become this angry person. This is actually an instance from a movie. Sorry, not an instance, but a character from the movie Inside Out, where you go all angry. This person always remains angry, and some of our stakeholders make us do that. Am I right? Yeah. And now is the main question. Why are they like this? Why don't they just get us? I mean, we're not asking for the sky or the heaven or go to Mars. We're just asking for small things, right? We're just asking, please increase my timeline, please give me more pay, please accept this design, this is a good design. Why can't they just get us? Why do they have to be so thanks, Rahul. Thank you. Thank you, Zakhir. Thank you, guys. You guys are amazing. I hope I am the one getting more brownie points than my presentation. I'm more expressive, I guess. Okay. So why is this reason? What is the reason behind this conflict? At the end, we are all looking like this. And we go like, why do we have to even deal with this person? Why can't we just do this work on our own? Well, like it or not, it is all about perspective. It's all about where these people are coming from. And it's applied, but most of the cases, these people are blinded by the perspectives. They just look at that very narrow thing, like the guy in the chef. So they are looking at something very specific coming from their domain. If it's a developer, they're looking at very specific things like code. If it's a project manager, they're looking at very specific things like KPIs. If it's a designer, all you're thinking about is your design. So everybody in a team, even for a freelancer, when you're working with multiple people, everybody is just thinking about themselves. When a freelancer is working with a business person, with a business, all the businesses thinking about is themselves, not so much about the freelancer, right? Similarly, for the students who are in here, your stakeholders can also be your faculty, right? Now they are thinking of things from their perspective. You're thinking of things from your perspective. So it really is a game about perspective. Now, to kind of get out of this individual perspective where everybody is in their own homes, is in their own bubble, how do you bring everyone together and align things? How do you bring that, how do I say it? That point or that junction where everybody gets aligned to the same thing, because ultimately you guys are working towards the same goal, right? Is that not true? So how do you do that? Now I'm going to talk about it through a very interesting thing. I'm actually going to share a story from my professional life, which is going to dive a little deeper on the idea of perspectives and alignment. So are you guys ready for a story? Oh, Rahul, you've made some great points. Different people. Oh, wow. Sorry, I missed the chat. Now I'm here in the chat. Different people have different views. Perfection doesn't exist. What exists is the process and improvement. Great point. Different people working together would mean difference of opinions, isn't it? Innate human trait. Very true. Good one, Vinayak. However, these conflicts also help in improving ourselves. That is for sure true. And I'm going to talk about it more, Shivesh. Rahul has said sometimes the best way is to see both the points of view and get a resolution after a meeting, perhaps. True, true. I'm sure that teaching experience is definitely teaching you stuff like this. Great. Understanding the requirement. Yes, of course. Now I have read whatever you guys have to say, and I think you guys are already killing it with the amount of interaction. So before I share my story with you, I want you guys to cheer me up. Tell me that you want to hear my story. Do you guys want to hear my story? Do you guys want to see what the story is all about? See, Rahul is definitely someone who's the most interactive in the chat. You guys need to just up your game. Okay. Okay. Great. Thanks. Thank you, guys. Thanks for the boost. I really appreciate it. Okay. So here it goes. About 2 years back, I was working with a massive German client. It was a big Fortune 500 company. Obviously, I can't share the names here, but it was a German client, and we all know no offense, but we all know how do I say it? The identity of working with Germans, the identity of communicating with Germans. So yeah, that was definitely there. But there is something very interesting about this story. Now, when I started working with this client 2 years back, as soon as I joined the project, I got to know I was filling in for someone who recently got fired from the design team. So I was any which ways filling a shoe for someone who got fired, right? I was committed. I thought, okay, might be that person. Let me just go ahead and keep doing my work. Now, another person from our team gets fired within the next month, and then the third person. And that is when I was really scared. I thought, okay, maybe it is something that we are doing wrong. maybe we're not getting our client. And that is when I really took a step back and I tried to understand what really is the problem here. I mean, there is definitely some sort of a mismatch. There is definitely something that the client is not liking, or the designers are not happy. Something is off. That is why so many people are being fired. It's not a natural thing, right? People getting fired from projects. So that is when I figured a secret. I figured something out on the day I was like super disappointed with my project. I figured out something really interesting. Do you guys have any idea what the secret is? Now, this secret that I'm going to share with you, this is something that actually made me work with the client for longer than a year. And believe it or not, where in a place where people were getting fired, my client loved me. They actually didn't let me go off from the project. They were like, no, we want to work with her. Was I the best designer in the team? No, I'm sure there were definitely way better designers, because we were a global team. We had people from Philippines, people from Paris, people from Greece working in the team. So there were definitely amazing designers in the team. What is this thing that actually helped me stay with the client? And on top of it, you guys will not believe it, but that client is so close to me now that we talk on WhatsApp. We have a bond for the years to come. Any guesses as to what this thing was that I figured out? I've already given you a hint, it wasn't designing. Asking questions, communicate often, communicate honestly, ask for what you need and why you need and how you need help. That's a good thing. Communicating, Bhavya. Okay. Anybody else? Empathy. Okay, Kushal. Being flexible and ready for iteration. I wish that was true, Ankit. I wish. Because the people who were getting fired were actually very flexible and they were working more number of hours than I was. I see, Jericho, you're picking up points from my presentation. Good. Recognize the problem from both sides. Okay, interesting. Anybody else? Yeah, Himanshu. 2 more minutes. Then I'll share it. Offering them a different plan of action. Not really. They had lots of business analysts in their team, and this is a massive team, a massive legacy product. It's a big product in the European market. So they definitely had top-notch people in the team, yet they were getting fired. Get information from their past. I wish. They do not share their old data. They do not share their old research. They are very difficult to crack. Trust me when I say it. Okay. Anybody else? Ask them why they fired those folks. Well, they just told me that they were not good designers, which I know was not true because I know they were great designers. Being open with feedback that we get rather than getting irritated. That's true. That requires a lot of patience, though. Working with this audience, it was very tough because I was getting very, very, very critical feedbacks. You understand the client psychology. I would love to do that. But that would require a significant psychology course. Trust me, it was that tangled. One last person, one last guess, and then I'll tell you the answer. Patient plays an important role for sure. Oh, yes. By the way, Ranjit, if we're talking about patient, there were a few people who even left the project because they got so fed up with the client. So it was very difficult to keep up. Hypnotizing them. I love Kiran's answer. Kiran, you have a good sense of humor. Great. So, like Bhavya and someone in the chat earlier mentioned, it is communication. Now, it seems very obvious right now, But trust me, it took me almost 6 months to figure out what is wrong with this client. Why are we not getting our designs approved? Why are they not sharing data with us? What is it? I mean, what is it? Why are people getting fired? And the day I realized that there was a huge communication gap, it was not just between the designers and the client, rather, it was in the entire project. Every single team was not communicating with the other team. Everybody was in their own bubble and they thought what we are doing is the best, because like I told you, they were experts in their own field. So they felt we are doing our best. How can there be a problem in the project, right? And this is something that I figured out, that communication is something that really needs to be worked on in this project. It is not the design skill. It does not matter, because even average designs that I was creating was getting approved um, as soon as I figured out it was this communication aspect. So, based on this entire experience and some other Fortune 500 client experiences that I've faced, not only that, now that I'm working with my team and managing my team, I've also faced, like, I've worked with lots of freelancers, I'm mentoring lots of students. So, based on all of this experience, I've put together a 3-step process of how you can communicate better with anybody, be it your teachers, be it your developers, be it your product managers, be it your leadership team, be it people from the business team, so on and so forth. And it's as simple as it can get. Really, understand them, help them, and build a valuable relationship. Now, we will get deeper into each one of them and see how you can really do this. We'll talk about actionables. So, we will start with the first one, that is understanding them. Now, I want you guys to help me figure out what is it when I say understand them. What do you think I mean when George, you're right? So, I'm sorry, but George, I just saw your comment and you are absolutely right. Most clients can't even explain themselves. And trust me when I say it, I had the most difficult time with this client, because every time I was going to them and asking for, what do you want in this user story? They were just being all, from the surface level. Okay, this is what, it is written. You just get it. Don't ask too many questions. Or when I asked them about the old files, they were all like, sorry, we can't share the old files, they are a part of the legal team, you can't get access to this, you can't get access to that. When I mean communication, I mean really building a relation with the client. And it took me a lot of bad jokes, a lot of good jokes, and eventually wishing them, occasions. So small little things, like, when you're talking to them, you're really building a relationship. And I'll come to that few in the presentation going forward. But it's that when you get to that point, that is when they actually start sharing with you, they start trusting you. So, okay, people are responding in the chat about how to understand them. Listen to the unsaid. It's easier said than done. It's very tricky one, Bhavya, but yes, it's a good answer. Kiran says, get to know their perspective better. Absolutely. How do you get to know their perspective better? That is what I'm very curious about. Understand them, try to know their perspective. Okay. Similar to how we know doctors work, I agree we're not doctors, but we need to understand that every means of how they express themselves. Okay. Trust building. Okay. How? Like, I get it that you understand their perspective, but how can you get their perspective? It's not that they're going to come up and talk to you about everything they feel differently about, because even they don't know how is their perspective different from yours. How do you do that? Explaining ourselves can lead to understanding them. Okay, that's a good start. Hi, Rofia. Good to have you in here. So for Rofia, I'm going to ask the question again. How do you understand your stakeholders? What can help you understand them better? Never hurt their ego. That's very true. Very true. Trust me, it can lead to terrible, terrible results. Anybody? You guys are close. You guys are close. Try asking questions that follow feedback. That's a good one. Approaching them happily. But what if they're in a bad mood? It works if they're in a good mood, but if they've had a terrible scolding, they're going to just shoo you away. Okay, interesting. Explain how we can work and how work can be done with their communication. Okay. Sometimes I think they know everything about design. That's a good one. I will also discuss more about it. To be friendly with them and respect their ego. Okay. Sure. All right. Give them more options. Ha ha. Motivate them to put in the best. Okay. Interesting. Well, most of these answers are somewhat right, but here are some actionables that you can actually start doing. Okay. So to understand them, sorry, what happened to my deck? 1 second. I think there is a bit of a glitch. Okay, to understand them, here are 3 things you need to do from surface level 0. First, understand their role. Are they a developer? Are they a teacher? Are they a business owner? Are they someone in the leadership? What exactly is their role in this product or in this project you're working on? It is very simple, but this is where you actually start understanding their perspective, like most of you mentioned. Understand their role. Once you understand their role, you will be able to understand what their goal is. Now, everybody is working towards the same goal, yes. But if you ask a developer what their goal is, they will very easily come up to you and say their goal is creating a code with no amount of bugs, creating a code which looks as good as the design. For a designer, the goal is to create a user experience that the user love the most. Similarly, for every single person, for a teacher, probably the goal is for the students to understand. The more they teach, the more they understand. Everything gets through to the students. They're able to grasp everything. So for every person, the goal is very different. Now, once you get their role, you will start understanding what their goal is. And the most important thing, what pisses them off. Now, once you get a hang of where are they coming from, what is it that they want to achieve, you will start understanding what are things that can easily piss them off. Like, again, I'll give you an example of a developer because I'm sharing that. So one thing you can easily assume is, for a developer, if you provide design changes very often, like you've made a design, they've started developing, then you're again making changes, or you're creating designs that are too complicated for a developer to be able to reach in their given timeline, those are definitely things that are going to piss them off, right? Am I right? Their ego. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. So you really need to understand what their pain points are. For different people, the pain points are going to be completely different. For a team manager, the pain point is going to be people not showing up in the team or people taking too many leaves. Whereas for someone on the design team, the pain point will be like back in the day, you could have easily said working with softwares that are hanging, but now it can easily be that people are not listening to us, or we are not able to put across our point of view, or we are not able to follow our process because of the time constraints, stuff like that. Every single one of you who has a different background, who's coming from some perspective, there are things that piss you off the most, right? Now, I know that each one of you, you guys are from different geography, you guys are from different role. What are the things that piss you off when someone is working with you? Maybe like top 3 or top 5. I just want to understand. Absolutely, Brar, you are right. In cases, there will be design iterations that are important than a developer's frustration. So then your job becomes to understand how can I make these design iterations in a way that my developer gets least frustrated. Then you know the frustration will be there because it is bound to happen, right? It is inevitable. But how do I create these iterations in a way where I can help this person? So maybe you can provide them ideas. You can help them find sites where, let's say, you've created a complex interaction. You can just spend 10 more minutes and help them find examples from the internet and share it with them. You can maybe help them create a component library well in advance so that when you have changes later on, they can be done faster. There are many things like that that you can actually implement with each stakeholder to really reduce their frustration. And trust me, when you start doing this, they will start loving you already. Like, you will be their blue-eyed babies, you will be their favorite ones in the team because you piss them off the least. Now, in an environment where everybody is working from home, people are getting frustrated with each other, and especially people who don't get their perspectives. When you work abroad, you need to stay in your lane. Let me tell you, you will have communication barriers despite of being sweet and interactive. That's one part where I believe that needs to change. Well said, Rahul. Now, one thing that I want to add to your comment here is there are definitely going to be cultures, and there are definitely going to be cultural differences, right? So let's say if I'm working with, right, let me go back to my story. Like, when I was working with this client, this German client, whenever they're coming back to me or just hitting me off saying this is not working, they were not sharing feedback with me. Later I realized I need to just keep them asking whys and whys and whys to really understand, and all their answers were logical. They were coming from the right place, but they were not sharing it with me, right? So the more I was asking them these questions, they were helping me out. So there were these funny things I even figured out, which I didn't know sitting in India designing for German audience. They have a certain way of writing addresses, they have certain legalities that cannot be broken, they have certain ways of doing certain things that I was not aware about. It is only when we started communicating better, I started getting this information from the other person, right? Now, if there is going to be a cultural and geographical difference, we really need to start understanding what are things that work and what are things that don't work with different ethnicities and cultural differences. Someone I see has raised their hand. I'm not sure, Rashika, if we can take up the question, or should we take it later in Q&A? I'm cool with both.
I think we can take it towards the end. That would be better.
Sure.
That might be by mistake as well. Some people understand it like they want to just speak in chat, or yes or no. They just respond by raising the hand.
Okay. Understood. ठीक है, works. So yeah, coming back to the deck. So there are definitely things that piss you off, and similarly there are things that pisses other people off. So we really need to know what are their pain points, where are they coming from, what is their goal, to really help them out for even our own sake, right? Now, this is about understanding them. Let's move on to the next step where we say help them. Now, the previous step was who this person is, what do they want. Now, the next step is how can I help this person? Okay. Now, do you guys have any ideas or suggestions on how you can do that? Once you know somebody, how can you help them better? Is there something that you can do to help them better? Help them. Try to speak in their love language. That's a good point. Okay. I'll give you guys a hint. So the first thing is you can really ask them. It's as simple as that. You can really ask them, how can I reduce your workload? And if they can't tell you, you Once you figure out things that piss them off, you can start building these practices that reduce their workload. Like I gave you an example of a developer, right? So I've very often picked up this way of helping out the developers by giving them examples from the internet. Because in most cases, what I used to do was, okay, we've designed the screen, and for the interaction, this is how it will go, and this is how it will look. I hope you got my point. And the developer used to be like, okay, I got your point, but I don't think that's possible. I mean, I can't do that. And that is when, I used to figure things out from the internet, show them references, and you will not believe it, things like these actually help both of you. It helped them really say, okay, yeah, this can be done. Things like, when your PM is asking you about your timelines, your deadlines, and they are giving you timelines and deadlines, rather you reach out to them and say, okay, this is how much time I'll need, and this is the reason why. Things like these, when you really start reducing someone's workload, it helps you reduce your workload. First understand. So Ibrar says the same thing can be repeated here. First understand them and then explore many ways to help them. Exactly. And the second thing is, this is very important, and this is actually the main important point about helping them, is to communicate better. So everybody, every stakeholder that we discussed, every role has a different mode of communicating. Just think about it. There are people in your organization, in your company, in your college, in your business, who might be using Excel. There are people who might be using Figma. There are people who might be using code. There are people who might be using notes. And there are people who might be, their go-to tool must be, I don't know, PPT, PowerPoint presentation, right? Now, when you're communicating with them, how are you communicating with them? So, are you sending Excels to someone who doesn't even know you how to use an Excel? Are you sharing things with someone who doesn't even understand them, who doesn't even know how to use these things? I mean, how are you communicating with them? Let's say there is someone on your team, right, who you're doing a design practice with. How are you communicating with them? It really matters how you're communicating with them in order to help them. What is good communication? That's a good question, Himanshu. So when I say good communication, the very basic thing I'm talking about here is be clear in what you want to say, you want to give, or you want to tell this person. And second, be very clear in what this person wants from you. That is why it is a give and take. It is a communication between both of these parties, right? Are you guys aligned with it? And if not, how can you be aligned with it? So if you're two people working in the same team, right, you might want different things, but you really need to understand what is the ultimate bigger goal, because you're aligned to that. And that is how you will be able to communicate, exchange ideas, exchange files, exchange your processes, thought processes better. Am I making sense? If I'm not, you guys can tell me. I know this is more of a soft skills kind of a topic, so it's not with a typical framework where you do this. It's more of a learning by doing kind of a thing. So you guys can tell me if I'm not making sense, so that I can give you more examples. I would be happy to. Yes, sometimes it's not possible. See, exceptions, I believe, are always there. But the idea of communicating better is that you at least take a first step. I mean, you try it out. If it doesn't work, that is any which way is the scenario. There is a saying, how you say it, ki, if you're not trying it, you're any which ways at zero. But if you're trying it, your chances of it being 1 or 100 goes up a little. Same is with communication. If you're not communicating, 1 second, sorry. Prepare, model, and describe it and ask for changes required in it. Yes, that's Satinder. That is a very good way of putting it. That Satinder is actually mentioning a really good point where you can, a good way of communicating is actually showing visually. Whether it is a developer, whether it is a designer, whether it is a freelancer, anybody, once you show what you're meaning to communicate, the other person understands it faster. And if not, I mean, in the worst case scenario, just use a mind map, just brainstorm on the screen, just write it in a storyboard format, just write it in frames. The other person can visualize what you're saying, because you are coming from one perspective and the other person is coming from a different perspective. So a great point there. So this is about helping them. I mean, sure, the list can go on and on, but this is something that has really helped me. One is reduce their workload in the best way possible. So with the story I was sharing with you guys, I really try to figure out every single stakeholder and what their workload was and how I can reduce it. And this really helped me build a good informal relationship with them as well. Because I'll give you an example, okay? So let's say a client joins a call and they're in a bad mood, you can just talk to them and say, hey, you seem a little down today. Now, there are two ways it can go. They can get, no, let's just focus on the work. In that way, you just shove it. In the second case, they'll be like, yeah, the previous meeting went pretty bad. Our designs are not being approved. And that is when you start understanding, oh, is it the case? Why are the designs not getting approved? Is there something I can do to help you out? And small little conversations like these, they really help you build a relationship with someone, and you never know, they actually start partnering with you and working together. And again, obviously, communicating better. Now, the third and the most important step in good stakeholder management is building a good relationship. It's easier said than done, but trust me, once you've done this, there is a saying in Hindi, 100 galtiyan maaf, which means even if you make 100 mistakes, they're forgiven if you have a good relationship. I want you guys to think about it. There are two people that you know of. Okay, pick two family members, right? There is somebody you have a good relationship with that makes a mistake, versus there is this another cousin of yours you barely like making the same mistake. Chances are you will forgive your family member you're very fond of, and you won't forgive the cousin whom you're not very fond of. What is the difference here? What is the difference here? Why would you forgive someone you're fond of and you won't forgive? Exactly, they're loved ones. So you have a sense of biasness towards this person, right? I built this good relationship, and that is why I luckily never got fired from the project, because of this. This was the reason. Now, how do you do this? Okay. The first thing, this is a very underrated thing. The first point, that is, make them feel heard and valued. Now, I'll share something with my personal industry experience. That is, in most of the cases, pretty much every single stakeholder feels that their opinion is not being heard in the team, feels that they are not equally valued in the team. So whenever you get a chance to understand or hear them out, you can really give them a chance to talk, about their perspective, where they are coming from. I'll actually share an example with you. Back in the day, I was working with a team where the development team was very difficult to crack. The entire design team was literally crying that, we can't work with this set of developers. And it's very difficult to work with them because they don't listen to us. They just keep giving their own suggestions and they just make whatever they want to develop at the end of the day. Right? Now, there is something that I observed with that development team. The engineering lead of that team, the development lead of that team, he was really someone who was just trying to feel heard. He used to give his suggestions and his opinions without even being asked for, because he felt like, people need to hear me out. I am the sensible one, just hear me out. So here is something I did that really changed the relationship of a development and design team in that project forever. I used to let the developer speak. Or if I ever got a chance to get the stage, to share what the design is like, I used to share my work, and then I used to call him and say, what do you think? Right? What do you think? What is your feedback on it? And in front of everybody, I used to say, okay, great. After the call, I used to actually reach out to him and say, sorry, this is not feasible because of XYZ reasons. And 99% cases used to agree with me and on the next call actually take my side. The reason is that in front of his team, in front of the rest of the audience, he felt heard and valued. It's pretty much the same case with every single stakeholder that you look at today. They feel that their intuitions or their ideas are not being heard enough. The strength of your relationship. Okay. The second most important thing is ask, don't assume. What do I mean by that is whenever we are talking to somebody, we get a project, we get an assignment. Trust me when I say it, and this is, I'm sure this is true. We try to act really cool. We think, yeah, we know this, we got this, I know what I'm talking about, I know what needs to be done. Oh, this is the assignment. Yeah, I can get it done. Without even asking if what I'm asking or what my thought is the actual assignment. Is my assumption even correct? Never even stop and ask that twice, because we think we will feel inferior. We will feel like a stupid person in a call. If we raise our hand in a call, we will be looked down upon. If I ask a stupid question in a meeting, people will not take me seriously. People will think I don't know what is going on. Am I right? Has this happened to you? Have you guys ever I'm coming to the chat. Yeah. Have you guys ever just, tried to assume because you didn't wanted to ask? You didn't wanted to seem the weaker person, or you didn't wanted to seem stupid, right? I have been there too. And I'm not kidding. I have worked with people of 10 plus years of experience. Everybody has done this. And what does it lead to? It leads to big confusions, big misconceptions, because everything started with a basic assumption that, oh, yeah, this is what has to be done out of the project. Let me not ask, because it's so obvious, right? Being a designer, we will never ask a developer, okay, how do you write this code? How many pixels would that be? We will say, yeah, we know it'll just be 5 pixels. To a manager, we'll say, yeah, we know how this is done. Right? To our teacher, we'll say, oh, yeah, I'll submit the assignment. Don't explain to me like I'm a child. Right? That is when we're actually assuming. But if we actually start asking, that will really change the game. It's fine. Look stupid if you have to, for all I care.
Rakshita, I think there is some issue with the voice. We lost your voice like a minute back.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Did not hear you from past 1 minute. Now I actually don't know where I lost you guys. I'm so sorry, guys. Can anybody help me where you heard me last?
I think the same point around the assumptions where we talk about uh, 5 pixels or the 2 pixels which we were speaking about, and just after that we lost your voice.
Okay. It's fine. I think we've covered it. So let's move on to the next step in that case. The last and the final one, and this has got to be my favorite, and this is the key highlight of the presentation. Stop fighting over intuitions. Now, I know there are times when we go all like, yes, my idea is the best. I'm sure what I'm thinking is going to work out. That design will kill the world. This is going to be the best solution I've ever created. And we all have done it once or twice in our life, where we think we have the best intuition and we want our team to believe what we are saying because we feel strongly about it. And of course, your hunch is right because it's your hunch. Now, for people who do know Hindi in here, they might get this meme. I'll translate it into English. So this is from a Hindi movie, which says, I am God. I know everything. I'm a designer. When I'm talking about design, trust me, this is going to be the best solution. When I'm talking about what is feasible in development, trust me, this is the best solution. When I'm a freelancer and I'm saying this cannot be done, or this is how things should be done, you should trust me because I'm right. I'm coming from my area of expertise, so believe me. But what about perspectives? We completely forgot about that. We're not the only one. If everybody starts following their intuitions and following what they feel is right, this is where we will be stuck with. Is it true? So that brings me to the last point of the presentation, that is, stop fighting over a hunch, over an intuition, over the idea that you feel is perfectly right. Start fighting over data. Use data to fight. Show them why you feel you're right. Show them why what you're saying makes more sense. After all, every single person in every single work setup is working towards the same goal. Everybody wants the best for the product. Being a designer, you do too. And you're standing up for it. But so is your leadership, so is your business people, so is your marketing team. Everybody is pretty much doing the same thing. So instead of thinking that people are creating roadblocks for us, let's just take a step back, understand where they are coming from, and really show them the data as to why something should be followed and why something should not be followed. Now, this is the last point I was talking about. Good communication is the difference between a good versus a great designer. A good designer will get the job done, will create the best design. But the great designer will sell the design idea to the rest of his team, get them on board, and use their help and support to be able to achieve the product faster. And that is what makes you stand out. And the last thing that I want to share with you guys is, in my past recruitment experience being a manager, I have fired myself. One thing that I can surely tell each one of you is hard skills is what gets you the job. You can really write this down if you guys want to. Hard skills is what will get you the job. But soft skills, a good communication, empathy, understanding perspectives, this is what will help you excel in your job, in your college, in your freelance. This is what actually makes you stand out from the crowd of hundreds and thousands of people doing the same thing that you're doing. Sorry, that was too quick. Yeah. Okay. So on that note, I actually want to open the stage for any questions, because I know beyond this, if I start explaining concept, it's going to bombard your head. So this is where I want to conclude my session and open to you guys for question and answers.
First of all, thank you, Rakshita. This was an amazing session. I have been in both the shoes. I have been the stakeholder as well, and I have been the one who has, dealt with them. But I just like I've realized one common thing, that even if we are with family members or maybe with our partners whom we know for so long, there are differences as well. With good communication and knowing them in and out, then there would be differences with our stakeholders, or someone we are working with, if we don't know them as a person. There are books written about this relationship, how to be better communication with your parents, with your family, but this is something which nobody will teach you. This is something
Yeah.
which you learn on the go, on the job. I still remember when I switched my career, there was this my first client. uh, I switched to content writing. So my first client was, I was really scared because, coming from the development background and then switching and then, going to content writing. And that was also one of the Fortune 500 companies I was working with. Uh, and he used to be like, okay, I want this blogs, I want this many blogs, and I want graphics to be like this, and I want 2 blogs or 1 blog a week. But the blog he picked took us 1 month to be published because he was not able to trust us. He was not able to trust me. He was thinking, okay, maybe she's a noob or anything. But later, now it's been 2 3 years. We still speak on the phone, like you said. Uh, it's somehow I got him into my team, saying, okay, we are the tag partners. We are always on the same team. We are both
Yeah.
we are wanting the same thing for the product we are working for.
Right.
And that's where he opened up. He used to, I just learned his language, what he is gonna
Exactly.
understand, what is something which is gonna trigger him. you know if I'm gonna present something, I learned his trigger points, and that's where the relationship worked. So I think, thank you for teaching all of this particular skill which nobody will talk about. And this soft skill is something you have to gain that much experience. In the starting of the career, we all will feel like, why is this man not able to understand me, or why is this woman not able to understand me? Still my
Right.
team would think of me like that. But somehow we managed. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. No, I can completely agree to your experiences and the stories that you shared, because getting a job is one thing, learning hard skills is one thing. Obviously, it is necessary. But then once you get there, like I was sharing the example with each one of you guys, that there was this team of designers, yet I was still stuck with the client. It's not the design skills, it's not the development skills of a developer
Right.
or the content writing skills of a content writer. It is how you're as a person and how you click with your client, with your stakeholders, the relationship you build, most of all the trust that you build. It really really creates a difference.
Right. I think we have some interesting questions lined up for
Sure,
us today.
I'd love to take them.
Okay. I think first one is from Satinder as always. Sometimes it happens some less technical people in the project do not try to understand the view. Please suggest a few ways to handle it.
Some less technical people in the project do not try to understand our view. Okay. See, Satinder, that is a very good question, because it's about building trust. What I see your question is about building trust. Like, how do you put across your point in a way that even though they're not understanding what you're saying, they trust where you're coming from, because they don't have the right amount of knowledge of where you are, right? So there are multiple ways of building a trust, but the smallest one is that you have to really make them believe that you're making their life simpler. And even though they do not understand where you're coming from, you don't come across as a person who throws off jargon. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm a designer and I go on like, this is the hamburger, this is the CTA, and yeah, this will be the interaction. And I keep throwing all these jargons. Yeah, this is the goal gradient effect and stuff like that in the meeting. I might look a very cool designer, but at the end of the meeting, everybody will be like, sorry, we don't want to work with her. We don't understand what she's saying. She can't connect with us. So it's really like helping the other person understand what are you saying. Sometimes they might not know where you are. I have had to even say menu for the word hamburger when I'm talking to people, because they might not know what a hamburger is, what noodles are, what breadcrumbs are. These are very common terms for a designer, but not for other
Right.
people. Similarly, I've seen developers in my team talking like, this is to be done like this, that query will be run by this, and I go like, oh my god, what are you talking? It is when they sit down with me and they really talk in a layman language, I say, okay, yeah, what you're saying is right. Sorry, I didn't get earlier. And in most cases, when the other person does not get what you're saying, they will never accept it to your face. They will be defensive about it. So they will say, yeah, I like your design, but I don't like this. Or they will just, just to give you feedback, they will say, make it better. I don't like this. I'm not happy with it. When you really ask them why, there might not be a relevant reason altogether. I hope that answers your question, Satinder.
Okay, how do you navigate working with a highly opinionated? Sorry, I always fumble over here when there are two synonyms together. Highly opinionated team.
Okay. So, see, there is a trick about communication, that is, there are two ways to grab an attention in any communication. One is that you agree to what they're saying. Okay. You will say yes, and they will be like, oh, yeah, come on board. The second is you disrupt their belief system. They all believe on something that, yes, this is the right way, this is the ideal way, this is how things should be done. And you say no. That is when you get all eyes. Either way, if you go and you say, okay, what you're saying is correct, and then you eventually say, I agree with what you're saying, but I also feel this might help us bring a better result, they will hear you out. In the second one, if you disrupt their conversation with completely different notion, they will start attacking you. Like, due to lack of better words, they will start attacking you because of the sole reason that they will feel very defensive, that what we know is the right thing, how can this person question our belief system? So to work with extremely opinionated people, I would say, I'm not happy to say it, but the best way would be to start with agreeing with them, get them on board, and then slowly just start putting your point across. Because if you put it out right there, they will just discard you. Either they will remove you from these meetings, or they will just consider you as someone whose opinions are not as important as others in the room, because they want more people on board who agree to these ideas.
Like start with agree to disagree.
Yes.
Okay.
I hope
Is
that
it
answered your question. Sorry. Yeah, please go.
no worries, no worries. Okay, so is it necessary to understand how technology works? As you know, coming industry with will leverage with AI, ML, and DL technology.
See, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correct. Is it Banke? So, see, it is honestly a question that a subject matter expert would answer better. But from my context of whatever experience I have, everything is important and then nothing is important. Given the industry that is revolving around, there are enormous number of topics that are going to get mainstream and then they're going to get outdated. It is on you to learn a particular skill if it is relevant for you. See, learning everything for everybody will not be possible. There will never be a time where you know everything. There will never be a time where you are up to date with all the current trends, because the world moves
Yeah.
very fast and it might not be feasible. But yes, if these are things that interest you, if these are things that you personally want to explore, then I mean, sure, go ahead.
Awesome. I think we have two questions in the chat section. Many times I get to do UX UI without doing proper research. As the management is not ready to spend that much time, how can I convince?
That actually is a great question. Who's asked this? Jagdish.
Jagdish.
Jagdish, that is an amazing question. Trust me when I say it, because it's a genuine problem. Pretty much every designer faces this unless you're working in your own business and you have your own timelines. This is literally the case with most of the UX designers, that you don't get enough time for research. See, as far as my experience goes and my understanding goes, people don't allow you to do things on their timeline because they feel it's a waste of time, right? If you feel it is important, right, make them understand why. What is the level of change in your design that you can bring with or without research? And you might have to probably work an hour extra apart from your day-to-day work. They might not even give you time to do this because they clearly don't believe in the idea of research. Take an extra hour, show them products and examples where people did research and they didn't do research, or better, if you can get examples of products in the same industry where they were at point A and they didn't do research, and then they were at point Z because they did research. They, raised their graph all the way to 100. Show these examples, show them what research can do and how much your data can change, and how will that even help your product. Now, in some cases, the teams are, very, very focused on the MVP build and they don't want to do research. It's understandable because at that time they cannot afford to have research because they're finding the product market fit. They're trying to figure out if the product should be there in the first place. But if there is space to do research and you think it is important, put the point across. Tell them why it's important. And second thing, build their, get their trust. Once they trust you enough to give you the time, to give you the responsibility to do the research, then show them why it was worth it all this while.
Right. I think that's a very, very great answer. Okay. We'll move on to the next, and I think the last question. Sometimes clients literally agrees with each and every point that I want to do, not participating in the project. This makes me scared that why he or she is not participating in the project enthusiastically.
First of all, I would like to say, I don't know if you're in a good place or not, because your client is agreeing to everything and I've struggled for them to agree to what I'm saying. So if I got your question right, you what you're asking is why the client is not giving you enough critical feedback.
He's scared of that. I think he's scared of that. He might be passively angry on him. The client might be passively angry on him.
Okay. So that's a good question. I'm just trying to think what is the best way to deal with the situation. So see, if you actually think that the client is passively angry, for that matter, for every one of you, if you feel that, your mom is angry, your dad is angry, your girlfriend or your boyfriend is wanting to even break up due to lack of
So
words,
he's
okay?
saying not angry, but even if it is good or not, or he's just saying for the sake of it. Like if
Oh,
we
okay. If the
understand.
feedback is genuine or not, that's what you want
Right,
to
right,
hear.
right.
Okay. So, see, Shrevesh, I'll give you a very sneaky advice, and this is my personal advice, that if you feel that he's agreeing to everything and not, looking into your designs, try making a small mistake once, just once, when it's safe to play. Just try making a mistake and it's wrong. If he or she is still giving you a go ahead and saying you're doing good, it could only mean two things. One, they do not have time on their hand to give you feedback, to invest in your project. Second, they might not have the intent to give you the feedback. They might not be willing. It might not even be something related to you. Rather, it is, like I told you, from his or her perspective. They might not be invested in the problem. They might not even want to take out time to sit and do the whole process. Or the other option is that you are actually doing a good job and they feel like giving you feedback might hamper your process. It can be either of these two. If you think this person has a good rapport with you since they're giving you go aheads, you can actually ask them. Like I told you, don't assume, ask. It's actually the best when you will be surprised what you'll get to hear. Talk to them and say that, hey, let's say your manager's name is X. Hey, X, I'm so happy that, you give me go aheads and you're so supportive of the way I design and my designs. But in order to grow, I feel like I need some critical feedback every now and then. So you can help me in the best ways I can do this design, or how can I improve this design so that I can become a better designer and I can give better contribution to the project. Yeah, it could
Right.
be to save time, but I don't think that might be the reason. Anything at this point, if I would say, would be an assumption. So I think the best idea would be to actually go and talk to this person, because I don't know who this person is, what is going on in their life, and what is on their plate.
Again, communication.
Understanding their perspective and not assuming. Yes.
Right. Absolutely.
I
Okay.
hope that answered your question, Sanket.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Shivesh, sorry.
Don't. You cleared everything, and I must say one thing. What energy, lady! How do you manage it? It was like
No, this is a topic very close to my heart. So, and I've struggled with it. So, I would love to talk about it. And I love teaching. So, every time I'm mentoring, I'm teaching, my energy. I'm not kidding. Before the session, I was like, I need a Red Bull, and I had the can somewhere here. I was like, I'm just so drained. As soon as I came in the session, I got all enlightened up by the audience we have here.
Also, I sneakily noticed one thing on your LinkedIn. You also worked in Accenture, like
Yes,
for
yes,
2 years.
yes. Right.
That was my last company before, switching my
Oh,
career.
really? That's amazing. That's amazing. Accenture is where I got to work with the most difficult clients.
I know. I could really understand from where you were coming from. Okay, there's one more question. So sometimes from Shivesh himself, sometimes
Mhm.
it become awkward silence during the conversations with clients. How do you deal with that?
So sometimes silence is good, honestly. Sometimes talking about anything is better than talking about nothing. But there is something that I learned with one of the greatest managers I have had. He used to crack jokes every now and then. Okay. Sometimes they used to be lame jokes, obviously, but even if someone cracks lame jokes, you go like, haha, just stuff like that. And eventually he built a relationship and rapport where every time he was cracking jokes, the client, our team, everybody was laughing on his jokes. And we used to be like, oh yeah, true that. Oh yeah. Or if it's just a Friday, he'll just come and talk to us and say, so what are your weekend plans? I mean, obviously it depends on the context of the conversation, but if you're just sitting on the call for the heck of it, or you're waiting for everybody to join in, it's the perfect time to actually bond. You can just talk about how is your day, how is your weekend going, where are you staying, is it raining over there, it's really cold in Delhi, what a temperature change, or something that is going on in the current affairs. You can always use this time to bond. And in between the conversation, if it's an awkward silence, then I would say I think it's for good. But
Hmm.
before the conversations, if it is and people are joining in, this is the best time you can bond with anybody, trust me.
Okay, there's okay. Last, I'm Pakka saying it's last. It's
No, no, it's
sometimes we
fine.
come up, sometimes we come up with some design and client. Uh, just a second, let me read it. Sometimes we come up. Okay, sometimes we come up with some design and clients like the design, but after they get to speak with the developer, they have a change in their opinion and they figure out that it is not achievable. So how do you deal with that?
Okay. So, again, it's a very practical problem. So, see, if your manager is agreeing with the design, naturally, I think that the manager is liking the design. There is not really an issue with the way you're designing. The issue is with the implementation of the design. So now there is there are two ways to go about it. One is that when you're making the design at that point of time, you start thinking a little bit from the implementation side of things, right? So let's say,
Right.
like I gave you an example earlier, using components. Okay. Even when you're creating complex designs and you're using components, it's going to help your developers, and you can always tell them, see, I know the design is different, but hey, if you make this component library, then you only have to work on XYZ things, and this can go on for the next 2 years. This will save you time and this will save me time. The second idea is that when you are delivering the designs, you provide proper annotations. If you think it is feasible and if you've seen it somewhere, share an example that makes the other person believe it is doable, because you might have seen an example does not mean that the other person knows what you're thinking about, right? So they might think this is not possible. Oh, it will take me a year to, build something like this. But no, if you actually share an example, they might realize, oh, it's so simple. Their code is so simple. I can just copy it and use it. So it's really about making the life of your developer easy here, I would say. Understand why are they saying it's not feasible. If your manager is coming back to you and saying, oh no, it's not worthy of being implemented, or this cannot be implemented, ask your manager why. Where is the problem? Chances are your manager might not know, or if he knows, then it is good for you. Ask them why and try to understand how you can solve for this problem. You can come back to your manager with a solution for that thing, right? If it's taking more time, then come back to a solution where the developer can save time. If it is not feasible in terms of interaction, then come up with an alternative. You know, if it's an interaction that was supposed to be on scroll, just come up with a video that can be attached to a scroll and that interaction can be done. Voila. You know, just understand why are they rejecting it, and give an alternative, and you will be happy, the developer will be happy, and everybody will be in a good place.
And I think Stack Overflow and GitHub open codes are hard to developers, part to developers are. So
Yeah,
that's something you'll always find something, or some code one has already done and they put it across over there. So this actually happens within when we prepare courses. So on every course content that we prepare, there are small illustrations which complements the content we have written. So to order to help the graphic designer better understand what I was trying to write, there's a gap there as well. So I add references, that
right.
okay, this
Yeah.
is what I am trying to convey, else the illustration won't make sense. So it's like everywhere, and you work with anyone, this is gonna happen.
Yeah. And additionally, there are something like Rashika rightly mentioned called annotation. So with your designs, you can actually annotate. What annotate means? Leaving notes for your developer. So
Right.
when they look at the file, you're not there. They don't know what you mean. They're going to assume something else. Whatever you've designed, they're going to assume it from their perspective. They're going to be like, oh my god, this is so fancy. When you leave a note and you say it is same as the previous screen, only the scroll changes, then they know, okay, this is the change. Then they're seeing from your perspective. That will really help
Right.
you.
Cool. I think, Rakshita, we have come to the end of the session, and I personally enjoyed it. Thank you for
Thank you
speaking
so
all
much.
our
It
hearts
means a
out.
lot.
And everyone loved it. I think they're already so pumped up in the chat. I've never seen yours and Rohan's session was something, which everyone was so interactive. And thank you so much. That was a
So
great
glad.
session. Uh, cool. So
Thank you
have
so
a
much,
good.
everybody, for joining in. I'm so sorry, Rashika. But
you
thank you
know, I
so
thought
much.
I thought your video got stuck, or you were just comprehending whatever I just said.
No, 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 no. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to take a session with such an interactive audience. Each one of you have actually made this session so much more exciting for me. And Rashika was asking me what is the secret behind my energy. It is honestly you guys, because I cannot see your faces. You guys are responding in the chat, each one of you. I had a lot of fun teaching, and I hope, if not the entire presentation, there is something, one key takeaway that you take from this presentation, and that would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much, everybody.
Definitely, yes. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, which is just a
Thank
Sunday
you. You
left.
too.
Thank you. Okay. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.